this department. So stoked.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Hoover, one of the programs manager here, top of the hill, Chabot Space and Science Center. Welcome.
I'm Denise Ebersold, and I was a retired teacher, but now I'm back working at fifth grade. And I've worked for CRS for a couple of years. They're a great organization, and I'm happy to be here.
And I'm Eric. I'm also on the CRS team. I've been doing environmental education for the past 25 years. Informal education, everything from K to gray, as they say, so all the way up into adults. And I want to acknowledge two of our team members that helped develop the workshop that weren't able to be part of the presentation today. Christian Aguilar from Stopwaste, and Kate Gallagher is a retired teacher, I believe also, but currently an active volunteer with Oakland Unified School District in something called the OTACA project. So this is our large team of global warming developers, and they've been a pleasure to work with. I really enjoy this team. And of course, Teresa Barnett is our executive director at CRS, the backbone of all the work that we do within CRS. So we're gonna get started, and we want to hear from you a little bit. So we're going to start. Stopwaste team is going to lead us in a warm up.
Great, thank you, Eric. You know, it's starting to get dark earlier and earlier, so we just want to do a quick check-in, see how everyone's doing. So if you could hit the next slide, please. We want to know, how are you doing today on a scale of worm? So in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute and share out loud. How are you doing today? Maybe you're feeling like an early worm, a can of worms. So go ahead and type it in there. If you could also maybe in the chat, thank you, Kyle, for putting in your name and your grade level. But if you also wanted to include your name and what school and organization you're with, and how are you feeling today on a scale of worm?
And facilitation team also jump in.
Yeah.
How are we feeling?
You said we can unmute, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Definitely being a sped teacher, wormhole. I have no idea which way I'm going half the time. So if I'm not in an IEP meeting or trying to calm my students down, who knows? So I have a whole bunch of garden space out there. So hopefully we can do something like that, but definitely wormhole.
Great, thank you. In the chat, I'm seeing some gummy worms, a few worm dancers out there. See your moves.
Hey.
I guess I'm a garden worm because we've just actually started to put a garden together up at our school. So right now the children are moving all the wood chips around the area. So I guess I'm a garden worm right now. I've got bark in my shoes and everything else. So.
Oh, fantastic.
Excellent. Well,
anyone, go ahead.
Yeah. Anyone else inspired by feeling a particular level of worm today?
I am dancing from Zoom to Zoom.
I'm with you.
All day long.
Worm dance.
Can I ask Penny, where is your garden and your school?
Murphy Elementary up in El Sobrante.
Okay, I said, yeah. Because I'm in Pinole, so.
Yeah, so we just literally started a couple of weeks ago. I wasn't sure whether to join this one or not because I've taken classes with the district and with another company that has helped us facilitate the garden. But as I say, it's nowhere near going yet. We're just literally building it up.
Oh, good.
Great.
So the more I know, the better, right?
Yeah.
You know.
That's why we're here to support you. That's great to hear, Penny. And I think you've got a good team behind you here today, both in the workshop, but at the end also as a resource. And we're hoping that we'll share a lot of good resources along the way and at the end as well. So thinking about how we're feeling as worms, of course, worms are one of the many, many creatures we find on Earth, including worms and ourselves. What is it about Earth, our worm's home, our home, that makes it habitable? What's special about planet Earth in particular? And we're a small group. I think we don't worry about chat and or feel free to use chat and conversation. I'd say use both.
Water.
We are a water planet, aren't we?
One of the few. Well, liquid water.
Oh, yeah, there is ice.
Great. Anything else about our Earth that makes it habitable? Any thoughts come to mind?
Distance from the sun.
Ah, so our location in our solar system. Nice. Welcome, Marisa. We're just getting started.
So,
So we're just talking about Earth in the frame of what makes Earth habitable? What's special? Why does Earth? And thinking about that, one of the nicknames for Earth is the garden planet, right? So why are there gardens on Earth? Why are there living things here and nowhere else that we know of so far?
Due to the oxygen and the land.
Mhm. Great. So not only water, but land-based, and oxygen. So the atmosphere, something about our atmosphere is important. Great. Any other thoughts? Well, I'd like to share us and our neighbors. Let's think about our next door neighbors. So what we call the terrestrial planets, the inner planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. The other three planets, as far as we know, have no life. Mars, maybe we'll find something or evidence that there was something, but right now we're it. And as Zoe suggested, the distance from the sun is really important because it keeps our temperature in a range where life can actually be sustained. So that distance is really important. But if you look carefully at this screen, you'll notice kind of an anomaly. If you look at Mercury and the temperature for Mercury, it's actually a little bit colder than Venus. And yet Mercury is closer to the sun. So it turns out that the big reason for that is Venus is surrounded by a really, really thick atmosphere. And that atmosphere helps to retain heat around it, where Mercury basically has no atmosphere. So even though Venus is further away, the power of its atmosphere is actually able to change the temperature and increase it to be greater than the more inner planet Mercury. So, and in particular, if we kind of look at that a little more deeply, it's because of something called the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect is basically, you'll see on this animation, sunlight coming in to a planet, and if it has an atmosphere, it'll often enter through the atmosphere and then bounce off of the planet's surface or be absorbed by the atmosphere on its way in. And anything that bounces off is actually converted into heat energy, something called infrared light. And it gets some of that, depending on the type of atmosphere a planet has, will be retained and heat up the planet. So this is what's happening on Venus in a really, really extreme, powerful way, making it really, really hot. And it's also happening on Earth to some extent as well. In fact, enough that it heats our planet by an additional 50 degrees. So our average temperature is something like 70 degrees, and we would be below freezing without our atmosphere and without the greenhouse effect happening. So it's really critical that it happen. The problem is that humans have now become influencers on atmospheric constituents. We're starting to add atmospheric gases that trap heat, things like carbon dioxide and methane in particular. So we're increasing the percentages of those gases, and that's driving up our average temperature across the globe. So that's what we call climate change. So climate change is because these gases are growing and the average temperature is changing, and it's changing relative to the age of the Earth, the 4.5 billion years old. It's changing quickly. We're moving fast, and we're seeing changes. So I want to ask you back, given that frame of a changing climate, have you noticed anything strange lately about our weather? And it sounds like we're all from the Bay Area. So just anything you've noticed in the last few months that maybe you could share with the group.
growing tomatoes in December, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I've noticed that too.
In warmer instead of cooler.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's starting to go, yeah, it's starting to get cooler, but normally we were cooler before now, I think.
onset of the cool season later. Mhm. Anything else?
In good years, we would have had more rain than we've had so far.
Yeah, just the one atmospheric river storm in early October and then really not much. For me, it's the golden poppies, California state flowers, are blooming on the median strip of the main street next to my house. And they're a spring, they spring bloom normally, but they're out. So somehow they're confused. It's been much warmer later.
Yeah, butterflies in my neighborhood, a number of folks have planted milkweed in their yards, and there's all kinds of monarch caterpillars and butterflies pretty much year round now. And there's a whole host of them flapping around right now, which feels so strange.
Yeah, it's almost winter,
Yeah.
officially winter.
So weather is tied directly to climate in that climate is looking at the average of weather over a long period of time. So as we're all sort of suggesting in our comments, we expect the Bay Area to cool down in the winter at a certain period. In a certain period, we expect rains to start kicking in around October, maybe be with us through March or April. But that hasn't been the case this year. And in recent years, we're seeing some change in the overall weather patterns, which if you take that over time, that's then a change in the climate. Any immediate change in the weather day to day is not climate, but a change in a pattern that's repeatable or over time, that's a change in climate. So that's kind of the backdrop for our workshop. Climate change and what is it? How does it affect our ecosystems and what can we do about it? So with that in mind, we have some climate questions for you. And here's the first one. And I'll let the Chabot team jump in too, but I'll kick off with the first one. How are gardens and climate connected? Any thoughts on that one? And feel free to put it into chat too.
Well, gardens grow plants. Plants are carbon sinks, absorbing carbon dioxide. Maybe not at the same scale as like an entire rainforest, but every single plant that's on the planet does help absorb carbon dioxide and then turn it into oxygen, that natural plant cycle. So with an excess of greenhouse gas emissions, we can also think about gardens as almost a filter for some of those gases, not all of them, and maybe not in the exact quantity we produce, but definitely connected through the cycle of air and the carbon cycle, how it moves through.
I think too, they're connected, the school gardens are connected to climate because we're hopefully upping our students' literacy on the whole climate problem or issues and what a climate is.
Mhm.
I know I've gotten a lot of play out of the garden at my school, and the kids learn a lot and they make connections to how other people could help help make the climate better. So I think just getting the kids involved is a big important part.
That's a good point. And Zoe said that gardens reduce the distance you have to travel to buy food, which is reducing emissions. So that's one of the great benefits to gardening.
I think we're starting to address the other two questions, so I'm going to put them all on the screen. These are great. So how do gardens help heal the climate? I'm hearing from Lisa and Haley some of that, and Denise.
Also, just the mental health benefits of gardening. We know that in the pandemic and the climate crisis, anxiety and specifically climate anxiety has upticked significantly. I'm hearing stories from all my friends. My son, who's an 8-year-old, is having anxiety issues as well. And we know that gardening has healing properties, has helped dementia. There's so many benefits for health and mental health and well-being.
So overhealing people, not only plants, but people. Mm-hmm.
A good point, Eric. Plants grow during specific seasons. Eating what's in season also helps reduce emissions. You know, if you think about, you know, that watermelon we're eating in January, where's it coming from? How far did it have to travel? How much resource went into bringing it to us? Any other ideas?
I'm thinking too of depending on how big your garden is, I guess, but the physical output, you know, you can feel physically tied to the earth by having to work in it, by moving the soil around, by picking the plants. It's a great mental and physical connection. And that's healing.
Absolutely. So now some garden questions.
So just in the chat really quick, do you have let's answer this with just a YN. Do you have a garden at school or just a thumbs up? You can use the thumbs up feature on your Zoom platform if you've got a garden at your school. So a few of us and a few not. And then how about just quickly around the room, what kinds of things do you like to grow? Or if you don't have a garden, would you like to grow once you establish one?
Kyle has a garden and Penny has a garden. Good.
Great.
Yeah, we were growing just tomatoes in the last part of the pandemic and different types of beans and beets, just stress relieving for my students. Like you guys were saying, they are completely stressed and have all this anxiety. Okay, go take a break outside, go pull weeds. I mean, go clean up the garden for us. They take actually immense pride in it, which is kind of cool. So.
Yeah, it is.
Great to hear. Therapeutic. And so it sounds like Kyle and Penny, both of you it's just getting started with gardens, so not quite using them for teaching, but we have Marissa and Julie have joined us as well. Julie, I think you have an active garden, right? Is she here? There she popped on. Or Marissa, if I'm pronouncing it right?
Yeah, Marissa. I work with some middle school students at a school garden that we just started. So we've kind of started from scratch and we've just kind of been building up. I think right now, because it's, the winter season, we've been focusing on like things that are beneficial for the soil. So fava beans and cover crop type plants. And then we've also really started focusing on like herbs and thinking about pollinator friendly plants too, which is really fun. So that's something for them to look forward to in the spring to start popping up are the herbs, lavender, oregano, and then, yeah, cilantro. We also have cilantro and then all the pollinator native plants that are going to be popping up in the spring.
Great. And I've just anecdotally, my favorite thing, Kyle, like you, is tomatoes. I love garden tomatoes. They're just so much better, taste so much better and richer than store-bought. And I've been helping shepherd my wife's school garden. She works at an elementary school here in Oakland called Allendale. And we've been getting that going. And we activated it this summer, reactivated after COVID because it had sat fallow for over a year. So just really excited about getting that going again. And the challenge, we'll talk about challenges a little later and where you're at each and how we can support you. But one of the challenges at my wife's school is sort of the culture of the school and buy-in. And I think part of it is what Kyle, you're suggesting, and as a lot of us have been talking about, is the stress level of students. And there's so much going on with COVID and we're still in the pandemic, even though we're back teaching in person. It's so hard to then imagine bringing in a separate teaching space, stewarding a garden. So anyway, we'll unpack that later. But I know it's real for many of you and many of us. And so just want to kind of call that out now that we're kind of talking about it. And then kind of a final question. How would you rank yourself in terms of garden skills, abilities, comfort level, however you want to think of that question? Are you at a sort of a beginner level, just kind of really starting to kind of think about obtaining a green thumb? Is your thumb starting to green, or is it like full bloom green thumb? You're like right there with the garden and you're all about it and you're going gangbusters. So Where are you on that scale?
So Julie says she's a beginner. She also said she has potatoes. Potatoes are fun to grow.
Great. And I see Julie at Piedmont considers herself a beginner, although I know Julie, you've done a lot of outdoor ed. I think of Lisa as an advanced gardener. Great. Got some beginner intermediates. Okay. Great. And so, yeah, any other lifelong learner, Angelina? Beginning in some areas, great. It's kind of in between for Penny, great. And the after school program is great. You're really wanting to engage the after school program. That's a really unique opportunity, isn't it? To engage students a little deeper in something, the after school environment, a little more informal, a little more time, a little less having to be beholden to the standards.
Yeah, they've enjoyed it so far of what they're even out there doing, you know, and just talking about it and what we're going to do with it. Yeah.
Great.
How old are the students you work with? Is it the whole school or?
I have first through second, third grade. But at the minute, yes, everybody is trying hands on deck, you know, to get it like the wood chips spread around, etc. So the upper graders are helping, but I think once it starts taking off, I think they may want to come in a little bit more, not just leaving it to the little ones to do.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Kind of calling out what Teresa's saying, the space can help dictate what you grow, right? What space is available. Some plants take over a lot of space and some not so. Any other thoughts? These are great thoughts on gardening and where you're at. We really want to assess where each of you are at, because we want to, again, provide the type of support that's most useful to you in taking that next step and creating an action plan for your gardens. Oh my gosh.
No, what happened?
Team, something's happening. We just entered a wormhole. This is I lost video. Oh my gosh. Whoa. The facilitation team is dropping off.
So dark in here. Is anybody else lights on?
I'm so sorry,
Where
participants.
are you?
What's
Somebody
happening?
there?
Oh my gosh.
I'm getting dizzy.
Anyone? Anyone?
Where are you? Come back. We're not
I
yet.
know Kyle felt like a wormhole, but we're actually in one. This is insane.
This happened
Yeah, we're
before.
Did in global warming 1, the same thing happened.
Are we getting sucked into the wormhole again?
Oh my gosh.
I think we are.
Oh no.
Did I just bump into you?
Haley,
Oh man.
That's
Guys,
not home.
I think I'm stuck back on Mars again.
Aw, man.
Because all of you were so obviously in our first workshop, you definitely remember that I got sucked into the wormhole and I got transformed into Cadet Wormhole. And what happened is I got sent to Mars. And on Mars, it's like really bad for growing plants because the soil just is toxic and there's no nutrients. And I'm just like a lone worm living up here. And let me tell you, it's lonely and it's cold and I can't really garden. It's so sad.
well, Cadet Wormhole, that's so, you've been transported probably further than any of us. I'm just stuck up here in space with my companion space monkey. And I don't know, it's hard to garden up here in space as well. We just don't have all the stuff that the team has been sharing about oxygen and liquid water, and this is crazy.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of that here on Mars either.
I hear you, but I think, weren't you able to, and our Denise, are you still on Earth?
I am. I'm still here.
Oh, thank goodness, somebody.
I didn't go with you. Yeah.
Well,
How are you got safe?
yeah. But didn't you have this might help Cadet Wormhole in terms of building healthy soil. I hear you've got a video specifically that might make both Haley and Zoe. What's happened to you?
Wow.
Ooh, I may look like a worm, but I'm not. I'm actually Muddy the millipede, as you can see. And I'm really missing my millicompost friends back on Earth. I had quite the big family of.
Well, I do have some video of your friends to show you if you'd like to see it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Haley, did this perk you up? Maybe this will help you on Mars.
Yeah, I definitely like to see my fellow worms and millipedes, you know, we work better together than alone, to be honest. So I'd love to, gosh, now that I'm here, I'd love to see my old friends again and learn about, why I'm important, because I need validation.
Earthworms are vital for good soil. They aerate the soil as they move by burrowing small holes. They process organic matter in their bodies and return vital compounds to the soil, increasing the nutrients available to plants. Let's take a closer look at how earthworms benefit your garden. 1. Improve soil nutrient availability. Earthworms help create humus, which is a dark brown black type of soil that holds important nutrients in place for plant growth and use. The worms feed on plant debris, such as manure, grass, leaves, and dead roots, as well as the soil. The digestive system of the worm concentrates the mineral and organic compounds in the food they consume, so their casts become richer in available nutrients than in the soil around them. When worms die, the body of the worm decomposes rather quickly, which further contributes to the nitrogen content of the soil. 2. Better drainage. Earthworms also improve drainage and prevent soil erosion and waterlogging, as their extensive channeling and burrowing help to loosen and aerate the soil and improve soil drainage. Research has found that soil with earthworms drain as much as 10 times faster than soil without earthworms. 3. Improved soil structure. The casts of earthworms help to cement the soil particles together. These sticky substances glue the mineral particles together in the aggregates, and at the same time, in a kind of mutual relationship, the mineral particles help to protect the organic matter to some extent from microbial attacks, thus preserving it for a longer time in the soil. When your soil has worm castings, they help to improve the structure and fertility of every type of soil, even on reclaimed land that has little or no topsoil. As the castings are water soluble, they have an immediate positive impact on plant growth. Now, earthworms are vital for good soil.
Haley, that Cadet Wormhole, that very end segment made me think of you in Mars, how barren your soil is, but there's hope.
Yeah, it sounds like I just need to poop a lot. And then maybe I need to get some water. But yeah, it's promising. But I feel like there's still more I need to learn. And I have a feeling that the Stopwaste team might be able to help me figure out exactly how I can build some sort of garden here on Mars, or maybe for all of you at home.
But the Stopwaste team are they still the Stopwaste team? I'm not quite sure.
Where are they? Yeah.
I think there's been a transformation.
Well, what do you call yourselves now?
Hello, Cadet Wormhole. Hello, everybody. I'm Ariel, AKA, I think I've transformed into Root Baller. And I'm here to tell you, now what? How can we do something about this? How can we build our soil healthy? How can we take action at home? Well, back on my home planet, Earth, I take action to heal the soil with compost. And I do that by creating a worm bin and taking care of what we call red wigglers, which is a little different than earthworms. So here you can see, oh, I miss my worm bin, but there's my worm bin back on Earth on my patio. And worm bins are amazing because they don't take up that much space. And sometimes I even keep my worm bin in my kitchen. And all you need is a bin. You can reuse one if you have one laying around, some newspaper, and some worm friends. And I feed my food scraps to these worms, and like veggie peels, coffee grounds, eggshells, but they can eat so many different kinds of things. And then the worms they go to work. They turn all of those food scraps into nutrient-rich compost that I can then add to my soils to help my plants and my roots grow stronger. And sometimes if you invite them in, a worm bin can also be a home to other FBI or fungi, bacteria, invertebrates, maybe even some millipedes. Maybe Muddy Millipede has experienced a worm bin before. And they all help in that process of making compost. And you can see I use the compost that I make on my container plants. All I have is an apartment. So I had this mug that got a chip in it. And I actually now use it as a planter, which is great that it has the chip because now the mug has some drainage for that plant. And so why do I take action and care for a worm bin back at home? Well, like I mentioned, I don't have that much space. So a worm bin is a perfect place, a perfect way for me to make and access compost. I also get to use my own food scraps, make my own compost. So instead of those food scraps going to a compost facility or, maybe even worse, going to the landfill where they'll create methane and contribute to climate change, I get to use my own homemade compost to help my plants grow. They also help add nutrients to the soil. When you add compost to your soil, it'll help attract other organisms like millipedes and those earthworms that we just learned about. And for me, it's also a way that I like to connect with nature and the web of life and food cycles by taking care of my worm friends. And there's so many amazing opportunities to engage students with worm bins. I encourage everyone here, if you haven't already, to check out our global worming webinar part 1, where we dive even deeper into worm bins. We have so many resources available for activities and videos and curriculum about worm bins. So we are here to support you. Reach out to my crew at Stopwaste for even more resources. So that's how I take action at home. I'm curious how we can take action at school to cultivate school gardens to heal our climate. Does anyone have any ideas?
Oh, hey, Rupala. Yeah, that wormhole does some wacky things. I mean, in global warming part 1, I was food rescue mama in the wormhole. And now I have evolved to Mombi. Why Mombi? Because me and my son take action at home, but we also take action in our school garden by doing zombie gardening.
I'm so glad I'm orbiting in space that there's a mom one on Earth. That's really freaking me out.
Space Monkey, that hair is amazing. And I have to say that we do zombie gardening because some of us don't have access to a school garden. And it's really important to tell our students that you can access a windowsill, use common objects or reuse materials like your cup, Rupala. But even more exciting, you can grow food from things that you might think are dead, but they're really alive. Oh. Just like when I made this salad the other day. And zombie gardening is taking things like this onion root stub and my romaine lettuce stalk stub to actually grow more food. So could you roll that clip for me, Rupala? Would you mind? Because we can just show everybody. I know. Pretty cool, huh? That zombie gardening. Hey, Space Monkey, I heard you have some really, you are a zombie gardener, I heard. Is that true?
Yeah, you know, Space Monkey, what'd you say? Yeah, I know. This is so exciting. I thought zombies were scary, but they're amazing. I never made the link. We've been zombie gardening here for, well, it's hard to see in space, but zombie gardening these green onions 2 years ago.
That's so cool. Like it went from that to this?
Yeah, this is
wow.
Zombie gardening. I guess zombies aren't as scary as I thought. That's amazing.
Well, thanks for sharing, Space Monkey and friends. Yeah, and that's the thing is that, again, you can just really use common items like this milk carton. And I'm also just going to show you a couple of things you also can do in the classroom. So now you got your worm compost. What can you do? And one of the favorite things that I like to do with students is do soil and compost investigations. And these two pictures are two classrooms. One's from Hawaii on the left, where they took soil samples throughout their community and did comparative analysis of chemical fertilizers, compost and non-compost. And on the right, they really play with ratios, 20%, 80% compost, that kind of thing. And you can really get into some rich conversations of what they wonder, what they notice, and what they can apply to their school. Next slide, please. Another really exciting application of worm compost is this incredible thing called compost tea. It's not the kind you drink. It is a brew of water, compost, worm compost, and molasses. You let it sit a little bit, and you can do these amazing experiments with compost tea versus just water. And we'll put in the link a video to learn more about that compost tea. Next slide, please. And carbon sequestration, you might have heard of this idea, but you know, I worked with Occidental Arts and Ecology, and they said native plants, when their roots are strong, they can grow roots as long as 25 feet. And like Haley was talking about, cadet compost, Haley, is that native plant can farm out through the process of photosynthesis, farm out that carbon dioxide, that greenhouse gas, through the process of photosynthesis, sink that carbon into the ground 25 feet down. So it's incredible. You can do these root growth experiments and pretty exciting stuff. Next slide, please. And more exciting stuff is the dream, right? Here's this underutilized West Oakland schoolyard in Oakland, Hoover Hawk Garden. And it was just this land, but on the right, you see students collectively sheet mulching, which is layering compost and cardboard, mimicking that worm bin basically to make compost. Next slide, please. What's so exciting is that the first day of the pandemic, Mama Wanda gave everybody brown paper bags to harvest the food from the soil that they built from sheet mulching. And she still is giving food to the community to this day in the pandemic, which is really important when you think about the food insecurity going from 1 in 6 in Alameda County, where we live, to 1 in 5 because of the pandemic. So you really can take some major action at school. But Zoe, are you there? Because I heard you've worked in a community garden or something.
I have.
Oh, hey.
Hey. That's a beautiful garden. And I would love to follow up with some more tips about making healthy soil.
Oh yeah, and we'll put that link in the chat too, the sheet mulch video.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Zombie, for sharing some sharing some tips about making healthy soil. And I want to share another tip you guys can all use that actually some participants have already talked about earlier in our meeting. And yeah, if you look at these two pictures, like what do you notice about the difference on the right and the left in terms of how this soil, this land is being cared for? Take a moment to think about that. If you go next slide, please, or click next. Yeah, so we can see here on the right side, we've got bare soil, super exposed, and that's actually going to lead to a lot of carbon dioxide and water leaving the soil if it's being burned and all those microorganisms are being communities are being broken up and a lot of evaporation happening. Whereas on the left, we've got cover cropping. Yeah, and I heard some of the participants talking about this. They're already doing it in your garden, which is awesome. This is basically creating a blanket of non-food crops to help overwinter your garden beds or your small garden plot, whatever size it is. And this practice is really feeding the soil that has been feeding you and feeding your plants all season long. And it's also going to help address climate change by really storing carbon deep down in the soil and keeping those communities intact. Next slide, please. And a couple other benefits about cover crop. Like I was saying, they're kind of like a living mulch, so helping to retain water in the soil, deep roots reaching down. It's going to reduce any erosion or topsoil being washed away. And they're also attracting pollinators, so all those beneficial insects and wildlife you might have during the rest of the year. You want to keep those guys and girls around to come help you, you know, eat some of the less beneficial insects. And next slide. This is an example of some really easy cover crop to grow, like you guys mentioned. This is fava bean crop, and they're actually really tasty. You can eat the leaves, you can eat the flowers, but one thing is you got to make sure that you chop it down before they go to seed. Because at that point, all the nutrients that the nitrogen they're fixing in their roots is going to be pulled out to feed their seed. So you really want to make sure you chop it down, which is an activity your students can help with, and kind of get that green manure to break down into the soil and really like building the soil up to make it healthier. Next slide, please. Yeah, so if you want to learn some more tips and tricks, or you want to test out, like I want to try sheet mulching or cover cropping, but I don't know how to do it, a great opportunity is to find one of your local community farms or gardens where you can work alongside other people that are doing these practices and learn from them, and also grow some food for your community. And these are just a few urban gardens in the Bay Area, and I really encourage you to check out ones that are near you, maybe in Contra Costa County, Alameda County, wherever you live in the Bay Area. And next slide. And a lot of cities have compost giveaways. So if you're a resident, you can come and get free compost made with all of the green waste that you put in your bins. And pretty soon on the horizon, there's some cities developing resiliency hubs and compost hubs where anybody from anywhere can come and get some soil and learn from each other and really tap into these community resources. So yeah, I encourage you guys to think about some of these tips and tricks and how you can use them to take action at any scale with your students. I'm going to throw it back over to Mombi.
Thanks, Zoe, and thanks, team here out in space. Hopefully they're not stuck in some more wormholes, but I think we're going to have some time for planning together. So who is jumping back in with that?
Well, yeah, we just want.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Angelina.
Oh, am I?
Both of us.
The wormhole shook me up. I thought.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you. I'm still orbiting out here. So we wanted to leave some space for you all to think about where you're at. I know that Kyle and Penny shared that you're sort of in that entry-level stage with your garden. Julie, I know you mentioned you feel like a beginner gardener, but you have had quite a bit of experience with, environmental education. And Marissa, we'd love to hear from all of you. And really kind of what the frame is what excites you about doing school gardens, and what's an obstacle you're experiencing, and then what might be a next step that you would like to take in getting a garden going or taking it to the next level. And this really can just be an open conversation among all.
Yeah, is this a time where you could stop sharing and we could talk?
Yeah, I think we did. Did we stop sharing? Yeah, I think we're stopped now. I think we're all just back together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I know for me, thinking about school gardens specifically. I think that can you hear me okay?
Yeah, now we can.
Dropped out.
Okay. I was just saying, hey, I was just saying that a challenge with school gardens for me that I'm thinking about is having the summer as a break period. And that's like the busiest time for crops. And, you know, a lot of the kids are really into a lot of the summer crops, especially, and they want peaches and they want watermelon and all these things that are fruiting in the summertime, but they won't be here for the summertime. So yeah, that's something that I'm like trying to prep myself for, being with them in a school atmosphere.
Which school district are you in?
Oakland Unified.
Did you hear? Have you heard about the Garden Steward program that the center? So they have a new program this year, and the idea is that to sort of meet that gap, that's the summer months that you're mentioning. They've invited basically garden stewards. It could be a teacher, it could be a community member who will actually kind of steward the garden through the summer during that harvest time, you know, during that robust growing time. That's kind of the level that the program is now. But I think, you know, the new center is trying to envision some of the things you're talking about. How do we utilize these spaces? Or because it's kind of sad in that the crops are just coming in as you're sharing at a time when there are no students to benefit from them.
In the past, I've had parents that, you know, I don't live by the garden, but they do. They're local, and if I set it up and made it easy for them to water, they would water through the summer. I had a couple of really successful summer programs, and then others didn't. It didn't happen. They didn't get enough water. But if there are any parents or community members that might help you.